Hey YouTube. So it's almost the end of another year, and since I'm now more than 2 years into my transition and been on T for a little bit over 18 months, I just wanted to kind of update where everything's at and talk about something that has pretty much taken up my entire year this year, and that is the psychological aspects of transition. A lot of the time when people talk about transition, they focus on the physical aspects, hormones, surgery and passing, that kind of stuff. But what people don't often discuss is the psychological transition, the whole process of rediscovering your identity now that your lies and masks have been stripped away, and of figuring out who you are and how you fit into the world and the various boxes that society designates. I've done a lot of introspection this last year. Prior to that, I had a lot of practical things in my life that had to take precedence and needed to be dealt with before I could focus fully on my transition. But I pretty much spent the last year doing what feels like nothing but focusing on my transition in the context of the psychological stuff. I've pretty much dissected who I am and where I fit, and I've reached some pretty interesting conclusions. I've discovered that I do not actually fit the boxes that society thinks I should fit. That's not to say that I'm not male, far from it. Just that the standard expectations of society's idea of male are so limiting and restrictive for me and my identity. I've talked before about the fact that I've had to accept that I'll never be the same as an XY male because I've been raised and socialised as a girl. And as a result, along the way in my life, I've collected a whole lot of experiences and perspectives that a genetic male would never have. So I'm a much broader version of male, if you like. I'm in a very unique position, I think. I don't see that as a disadvantage at all. I've actually got to a point where I view it as an advantage and to some extent a privilege to have walked on both sides of the fence, so to speak. So the challenge for me was to figure out what parts of that female-based experience were still useful to me or brought me something positive. And then to work out how to integrate them into my masculinity in a way that firstly I am comfortable with, and secondly that means that society still recognises me as male and hopefully stops trying to shove me into stupid little boxes. It's been incredibly difficult in some areas, and some were definitely minefield territory, but I feel like I've managed to do that now in a way that I am happy with, and that allows me to express every aspect of my identity, not just the ones that society is comfortable with. As part of the introspection process, I've also been forced to confront, question and push a lot of boundaries that I thought were pretty solid in my life. And to my surprise, I've actually discovered that every boundary I thought was pretty much concrete has proven to be in fact very fluid and elastic and stretch much further than I ever imagined. I've kind of evolved now, I think is the word, to the point where I question every boundary I come across and kind of go, oh, I wonder why I put that there. I wonder why that's there, and I need to push that. And I do push it as far as I can, just to see how far it can be pushed and how far I can expand my horizons and ditch the limitations. I'm liking this new boundary push inside of me very much. I've kind of gone from being a person who was previously very rigid in my boundaries and ideas and ultimately very afraid of change, to someone who actively seeks out boundaries to question and pushes them as far as I can, and likes to shake things up and completely rework them as much as possible. I've become the sort of person who refuses to accept boundaries and limitations, and I like to walk on the edge. I'm not entirely sure why I have this need to push boundaries and explore them and shift them, but I suspect that it has something to do with being confined to certain boxes for most of my life and not being allowed to explore the possibilities or test the boundaries off my own bat. Sad, really, that society can expect society and the people who are supposed to raise you to the best you that you can be would impose this kind of restrictions instead of actually allowing someone to learn to fly. But I digress. I've had a totally shit year, really, because along with the serious mental work I've been doing, I've had a lot of major and very stressful life events happen to me this year, and it hasn't been a very good mix at all. But having said that, I do feel that I have now come out the other side of it a much better and stronger person for it, and much more solid, if that makes sense. And as part of this sense of a kind of rite of passage thing, I feel like I need to change my appearance, kind of to make it a more accurate and comfortable reflection of the diverse, broad and boundary-pushing person that I've become. So watch this space, because I may well surprise a few people who thought they knew me pretty well.